Have you ever met a woman who walked into a room and, in a small, silent moment, the entire atmosphere seemed to shift? It wasn't because she was the most beautiful, the most seductive, or the most outspoken, but because something in her touched the unconscious part of everyone present. A kind of magnetism that makes men pause without understanding why their heartbeat suddenly quickens. Carl Jung called that moment the Numinous effect, when a woman's Eros connects with the collective unconscious, awakening the Anima projection inside men and forcing them to look back at themselves. The danger is not in any seductive game, but in the way her presence pushes them to confront what they have always avoided. Fear, the shadow, and the many layers of persona they have grown accustomed to wearing. The behaviors we are about to explore are not tactics, but signs of a soul that has achieved inner integration. When a woman stops seeking validation from the outside, she becomes a powerful magnet in her own right. Today, you and I will open that door to understand why, when a woman becomes whole, she becomes dangerously irresistible. 1. Self-possession and inner silence. One morning, you walk into your usual coffee shop. The line is as long as ever. The sound of grinders and overlapping conversations fill the air. But when it's your turn, you realize you're speaking faster than usual, trying to seem likable, trying to make others feel you're okay. Then, as you take your cup and step out, it suddenly dawns on you, since when did you have to prove yourself to be so agreeable? In that moment, amidst the chaotic noise, you feel a certain fatigue seep into your heart, a tiredness from always having to show up just to be seen. Carl Jung once wrote, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living. It is silence, not activity, that becomes the doorway bringing you back to your own center." Mature women often do not realize they are carrying too many roles. At work, they smile to soothe tension. At home, they keep silent to maintain harmony. But the more they try to please everyone, the further they drift from their original self. Jung called this the persona, the social mask, that helps us adapt, but if worn too long, it makes us forget the self, that silent, autonomous core inside. When a woman dares to sit still, not performing, not explaining, she radiates a kind of dangerous energy, quiet but weighty, forcing those in front of her to pause and reflect on themselves. A 2021 study by psychologist Virginia Thomas at Western Carolina University pointed out that women with a high capacity for inner awareness are often perceived as having greater charisma and emotional power, even when they speak less than others. This allure doesn't come from perfection, but from steady breathing, a direct gaze, and complete presence. When you don't rush to fill silence with words, others are left to listen to themselves in your quietness, and that is what makes them uneasy, even afraid. For that silence isn't a defense, but a mirror. Remember the image of Meryl Streep backstage at the Iron Lady? She once said that after 50, the most attractive quality in a woman is not being in a hurry. That slow gaze, steady breath, and a voice that needs no proof. All of these create an energy field that makes others want to slow down just to catch her rhythm. This is self-possession, the ability to own oneself, which Jung saw as the foundation of individuation, the process of becoming your true self. Yet, many people mistake stillness for coldness. They use silence as a weapon to mask fear, not as a deep well to find themselves again. That's when the shadow, the part afraid of being hurt, takes control. A person truly at home within herself is not silent to control, but to listen. She does not hold eye contact to challenge, but to connect through her presence. You can start with something simple. Before each meeting, pause for 5 minutes to scan your body. Notice which parts are tense, which are cold. Then breathe deeply for 4 counts. When someone asks your opinion, don't rush to answer. Speak less, but let each word carry the weight of truth. Don't accept invitations just because you fear missing out. Sometimes, slowing down is how you tell the universe, I am ready to be present, not running away. Stillness is not an empty silence, but a purposeful heartbeat. When you enter a room with calm energy, not trying to impress, you don't just get noticed, you force others to adjust their own breathing to yours. And that is the most dangerous kind of allure, a presence that the world simply cannot ignore. 2. Sovereign boundaries. Have you ever spent an afternoon standing at the entrance of a supermarket, one hand on your cart, while your mind wrestles with a deceptively small question that somehow drains you completely? Should I agree to help out again? Should I spend my time on something I don't really want to do? The way you stand there, as people stream past, feels like life itself is slipping away from you, bit by bit, all because of that single word, reluctance. You don't want to disappoint anyone, you don't want to be seen as selfish, and yet in the end, you are the one most worn down. Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and the hardest part of accepting yourself is daring to say no." It sounds simple, but for an adult who has been through heartbreak, the word no carries so many fears. Fear of being left behind, fear of not being loved, fear of being judged. You grew up believing that kindness equals endurance, that love means shrinking yourself. But the more you live, the more you encounter a hard truth. Kindness does not mean erasing your own boundaries. In Jungian psychoanalysis, boundaries are like a container, a vessel that keeps your life energy and loving energy intact. Without a container, Eros, the resource that lets you connect and feel, will overflow, weaken, or be taken advantage of. A mature woman who knows how to set her own boundaries will make men immediately sense one thing: she cannot be bargained with. And strangely, that very fact makes her even more attractive. Boundaries are a mirror of dignity. I remember once watching an interview with actress Frances McDormand. She shared that after 40, she began practicing the art of refusal, saying no to roles, meetings, or invitations that did not feel true to her identity. She said that the more she said no, the more she found what she truly wanted to say yes to. This made me think of Jung, when he described individuation as the journey of separating from blind conformity with the collective to return to one's own true center. Another example comes from a 2016 study by Dr. Amelia Aldao, which showed that people with clear boundaries are usually seen as more trustworthy in all types of relationships. When you know your own limits, others feel secure because they know where they stand, and they know you're not using endurance to buy affection. Boundaries are the unspoken language of maturity. But you and I both know. Sometimes, we use boundaries like barbed wire fences, not as supportive containers. When we are afraid, boundaries become punishment. We respond with prolonged silence, a cold face, a sudden withdrawal. That is not sovereignty. That is the shadow, the wounded part taking charge, making us believe that hardness will protect us. In reality, that coldness only distances us from what we truly desire: healthy connection. So, how can you set boundaries without turning yourself into a fortress? You can start with the one-sentence script. I stop here. If you respect this, we continue. If not, I walk away. Say it gently, slowly, and clearly. No justifying, no explaining, no lowering your voice as if asking someone's permission to exist. Your calmness is how you light up your own inner room. Boundaries are not declarations against others. They are promises you make to yourself. When you know where to stop, you send the world a very strong signal. I know my worth. And you will see something strange happen. Those who do not respect you will disappear on their own, while those who deserve you will come closer, with respect, not possession. Boundaries are doors that only open when your soul feels safe. And when you learn to keep that door, life will be different. You will be different too. 3. Shadow literacy. There are mornings when you look at yourself in the bathroom mirror, steam still lingering on the glass, and you wonder why a seemingly harmless comment from someone yesterday made you feel so uneasy. You're not angry at them, but the feeling of being touched somewhere deep inside leaves you restless all night. You tell yourself, I overreacted, yet you know deep down that something isn't right. That moment in front of the mirror, amidst the cold white light and the truths you often avoid, you feel a very distinct emotion, both familiar and frightening. That part within you, that Jung called the shadow. Carl Jung once wrote, "To become conscious of the shadow is to shine a light in the darkest corners of our being. And those dark corners have never been far away. They are present in those moments when we feel a vague jealousy, anxiety without knowing why, or the urge to control others just to feel safer. Mature women, especially those who have experienced heartbreak, are often prone to confusing intuition with old fears. When we don't understand the shadow, we carry old wounds into every encounter, then wonder why we react the way we do. A 2019 study by psychologist Teresa Di Donato found that jealousy does not arise naturally, but is triggered by unresolved experiences from the past. When the body remembers the pain of abandonment, even a delayed text message can make the heart race and the mind spin the worst scenarios. But what's truly notable is this: people are not attracted to those who deny their own darkness. They are most drawn to those who can calmly name their uncomfortable emotions. Remember the story of singer Alanis Morissette, who openly spoke about her journey facing her shadow after years of struggling with emotional codependency. She said that she once confused love with attachment, caring with control. Only when she dared to face the truth, "I am jealous because I am afraid I'm not enough," could she enter into more mature relationships. That story is not just a tale of therapy, but a testament to the allure of inner honesty. And do you know what's most fascinating? When you acknowledge your shadow at the right time, gently and without over-explaining, the man across from you will immediately sense something rare: trust. Not because you are perfect, but because you're not hiding your motives. That transparency makes him slow down, take you more seriously, and reflect on himself. This is why understanding the shadow becomes a form of dangerous attraction. It shatters psychological games and forces the other to grow up. Of course, there is an easy trap to fall into. You think you're being honest, but in truth you're venting your anger. You push your unresolved emotions onto someone else and call it candor. But candor isn't about throwing your darkness at others. It's about speaking of that darkness using I, with the intent to connect, not to hurt. If you truly want to step into the light, try this simple exercise. After each date or conversation that triggers a strong reaction, take 10 minutes for a brief journal entry. Write exactly 2 sentences. What did I just want to manipulate? And what is the root fear? When the shadow is named, it might make you tremble a bit, but it loses its power to control. And then, very gently, like steam fading from the bathroom mirror in the morning, you'll notice yourself changing. You'll no longer be angry without cause, no longer perform to keep someone. You'll enter each encounter with deeper self-possession. And the strange thing is, it's this quiet honesty with your own darkness that becomes the very light no one else can look away from. 4. Mystery without games. I want you to remember an ordinary morning at the office, when you're chatting with colleagues around the coffee machine. Everyone's sharing little things from their lives, but there's one woman who simply smiles, listening more than she speaks. You notice that she's in no hurry to share personal stories, doesn't reveal every hidden corner of her life, yet every answer is just enough to make you want to know more. Have you ever wondered what makes someone mysterious without being off-putting, how their silence only draws you in further? Here, there's no tactic, no game of disappearing, not even the hard-to-get attitude that makes others impatient or frustrated. This is a very real mystery, coming from inner strength. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." True interaction, not rushed, not laid bare, is the real catalyst for the deepest vibrations. A woman who knows how to wear the persona like a jacket is both polite to the outside world and refined enough not to use it as a permanent shield. When needed, she can shed that outer shell, gently revealing a memory, a hidden value, or an unhealed wound, but never allows anyone to dig out her entire soul. This makes men, and those around her, continually wonder, what remains yet to be discovered? That mystery does not create a barrier, but a softly lit space, inviting the other to come closer, but only if they are patient and sincere enough to be offered another layer. A 2017 study by Dr. Suzanne Degas-White revealed that people who maintain soft barriers in communication, revealing information in parts, at the right time, in sync with emotion, are more often seen as trustworthy and deep by others. The feeling of being invited little by little, each layer gently unveiled, satisfies curiosity without ever making the other feel used or controlled. It is this rhythmic unveiling that is the very kind of mystery Eros seeks in Jungian psychology. Attraction born from density of meaning, not from a game of guessing. You might think of the image of Viola Davis on television, a woman always composed enough to keep her own secrets, but when needed, she can speak about the pain of loss or the injustices of her childhood with a calm voice, using neither tears as a weapon nor her past as a show. The more you listen to her, the more you feel the true weight of each experience, every silence between the stories. This is an allure that doesn't come from flowery words, but from intentional selectiveness. Each sentence is like a stone dropped onto a still pond, creating endless ripples of imagination in the mind of the listener. A common mistake many people make is using mystery as a power game, turning silence or disappearance into a tool to control the other person. In truth, that is the quickest way to trigger someone else's wounds and break any genuine connection. Real mystery doesn't come from distance, but from inner depth, like a low light cast over a warm room, just enough to see the other's face, but still leaving many unnamed corners in shadow. If you'd like to try, begin with the 3-layer rule. The first time, talk only about a hobby or a small habit. The second time, share a core value or something truly important. And only when you feel safe enough, tell an origin story, a wound, or an unfulfilled dream. Don't open all the doors of your inner world right away. Let each meeting be a new step into your universe, and the other person will realize they cannot grasp you through impatience or superficial curiosity. And finally, you'll see this mature mystery doesn't tire anyone out, doesn't challenge or manipulate, but is the way you invite a true connection. That is the most dangerous allure. Attraction through depth, not through a guessing game. 5. Competence and craft. There are days when you sit at your desk, the computer screen already open, but your mind seems to drift elsewhere. You look at the list of things you want to learn, the projects you were once passionate about, and you let out a sigh. Not because you lack ability, but because life has swept you along for so long that you've forgotten how empowering it once felt to master something. And perhaps you've also wondered, why is it that every time I see a woman fully immersed in her work, I feel something so powerful, so compelling? Jung had a very profound saying, "What you can do, you should do." For him, competence is not just about skills. It is the sign of an integrated animus. That is, the reason, willpower, and discipline inside a mature woman have become coherent and effective. When a woman enters a state of deep work, not boasting, not putting on a show, but simply focusing, dedicating herself, and holding internal standards, she radiates a kind of energy that allows Eros, the energy of life and connection, to grow naturally. It's no coincidence that mature men are often attracted to women with a profession, with passion, with their own domain. What they sense is not surface success, but inner quality. She has her own world, something to contribute, something that gets her up each morning. This attraction goes beyond fleeting desire and touches something deeper, the longing to serve, to accompany, to become better beside a woman like that. A 2018 study by Dr. Melissa J. Williams, Emory University, revealed that dedication and mastery at work are rated as some of the most attractive traits in mature women, especially by men who are also in the process of rediscovering themselves after 40. The ability to live with purpose is a nonverbal language that says, "I know who I am." And nothing is more alluring than that. I remember listening to artist Alicia Keys talk about her journey back to music after being exhausted by the pressure of perfection. She said that what helped her be reborn was not changing her style or increasing her fame, but returning to her music craft, those hours at the piano, just to rediscover her authentic sound. When she reappeared, people saw her as more beautiful, more radiant, but not because of makeup or clothes. It was because she had regained ownership of herself. This is precisely the energy that men sense so clearly, not defensive feminism, but self-sourced competence. However, you and I both know there's a common mistake, using competence as a persona to hide fear. You work tirelessly, take on everything, become the unstoppable strong woman, and think that this will win you more respect. But that is not competence. That is defense. When the animus is misused, it creates tension rather than attraction. So how do you truly live your craft without turning it into armor? You might try the 90-minute deep zone each day, devoting a fixed block of time to focus on your most important work or passion. No social media, no multitasking. Just you and the work. Just steady, small progress. This brings you back to the feeling of mastery, a kind of quiet, authentic confidence that doesn't need to be declared. When you enter a room with the energy of someone who knows what she's good at, who knows what she's building, you don't have to prove anything. You only need to be present. And that presence, calm yet unwavering, is the most dangerous kind of allure. It makes others want to become better beside you. Not because you demand it, but because your competence creates its own gravity. 6. Moral courage and truth-telling. Have you ever witnessed a small scene that stayed on your mind for days? One afternoon at the office, as everyone was getting food in the pantry, a coworker made an offhand, inappropriate joke about someone who wasn't there. Everyone laughed it off, and you stood there with your plate, feeling your own smile freeze. You didn't like what just happened, but you didn't want to be the one who ruins the mood. You hesitated. Should you speak up? Should you defend the person being talked about? Or should you stay silent to keep the peace? That moment, though small, reveals a truth many women know deeply. You've gotten so used to enduring that sometimes you no longer recognize where your true moral boundaries lie. Carl Jung once said, "There is no growth without confrontation. Maturity never comes from avoidance. It comes from the moment you dare to say something true, at the right time, in the right tone." This isn't aggression, nor is it moralizing. It is moral courage, the rare balance between logos, truth, and eros, connection, that Jung so valued. When a woman knows how to speak the truth without humiliating others, she steps into a very special state, strong but not harsh, clear but not cold. And to mature men, this is both attractive and challenging. It makes them reflect on themselves. A 2020 study by Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, NYU Stern, found that those who tend to tell the truth with restraint are viewed as the greatest contributors to psychological safety in groups. This means that when a woman dares to name what's wrong without bitterness, she not only protects her own values, but also raises the behavioral standards of the entire environment. This is a form of allure that doesn't come from beauty, nor from mystery, but from character. Recall the story of actress Emma Thompson at a public event, when she saw a colleague being questioned unfairly. She calmly walked up to the microphone and said, "That question is inappropriate. Let's keep this respectful. No harshness, no grandstanding, just a single sentence." And the entire room shifted. When a woman stands up for what's right, not for herself but for the sake of the greater context, there is a palpable moral gravity. You cannot fake that. However, to speak the truth as beautifully as this, you must overcome a deeply ingrained habit: the fear of making others uncomfortable. And sometimes, after holding back for too long, you swing the other way. Biting, sarcastic, even saying things that hurt. That is not truth. That is shadow animus. It does not build connection, it destroys it. Jung warned, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." If your words carry the intention to dominate, you are speaking from fear, not from courage. So how can you speak the truth in the right way? You can try the 3-step formula, a kind of safe conversation template recommended by many communication therapists. First, describe the reality. No judgment, no labeling. When you said that, in front of everyone. Next, state the impact on you or others. The atmosphere became uncomfortable, and that person seemed hurt. Finally, make a clear request. I hope we can stay respectful when discussing someone who isn't present. When you speak like this, you are not attacking anyone, nor are you shrinking away. You stand at the center of yourself, not too distant, not too close, not defensive, not aggressive. And this is what creates a deep kind of attraction, the kind that makes men take you more seriously, behave better, and look at you with both respect and longing. I want you to imagine again that scene in the pantry at noon. Try to picture the next time it happens. You take a breath, keep your voice calm, and say just one sentence. "Let's talk about something else. This isn't fair." That's all. No bitterness, no anger. But you'll feel it so clearly. The room shifts, you change, and in that moment, You become the woman who carries what Jung called the power of truth. And then, when you leave the room, you'll know. Some forms of attraction don't come from beauty, sweet words, or mystery. They lie in your ability to stand up to what's wrong without losing your humanity. That is the most dangerous kind of allure attraction through dignity. 7. Embodied grace. Have you ever found yourself rushing into a meeting, your heart racing, breath quick, and your mind repeating reminders? Stay calm. Don't let your anxiety show. Yet, as you sit down, you notice your hands trembling slightly, your voice not steady, your eyes avoiding others. That's the moment you realize your body can betray your mind more than you think. And conversely, it is also the body that holds the key to reclaiming your inner sense of safety, something anyone in your presence can feel, even if they can't explain why. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This awakening is not only a mental process, but must also be conveyed through every gesture, every breath, every look you give. When a woman enters a room with steady breathing, warm eyes, and a calm, measured pace, she emits an energy that others, regardless of gender sense, subconsciously. This is the safety of the nervous system. This is grace, a quality of calm, gentle presence, just enough to make people want to come closer and stay longer. A 2012 study by Dr. Stephen Porges on the polyvagal theory of social neuroscience showed that we unconsciously read the nervous system state of others through their voice, their eyes, and their breath. When you regulate your body, you not only soothe yourself but also send out signals of safety to everyone around you. The attraction born here is not from physical beauty, not from seductive form, and certainly not from flirtatious skills, but from the deep energy of someone who is completely at peace with themselves. I will always remember the image of Maya Angelou as she stepped onto the stage, simply standing still for a few seconds, taking a deep breath, looking down at the audience with gentle eyes, and everyone seemed to hold their breath. No one heard her speak immediately, but everyone could feel, "I am here, and she is truly present with me." Maya Angelou did not need to perform, did not strike a pose, did not try too hard to be friendly. It was complete presence, a form of grace honed by time and life experience. Another example is in leadership training programs at Harvard Business School, where researchers found that simply taking 4 to 6 intentional breaths before entering a meeting or presentation could significantly reduce stress hormones, while also increasing the trust conveyed to the whole group. Pausing for a moment before answering an important question also helps you control the atmosphere, slow down any hasty reactions, and create the feeling that you are always in control, no matter the situation. But you and I both know, it is also very easy to get confused. Sometimes, wanting to control the impression you make, you perform with seductive gestures. Change your posture. Try to sit, smile, talk, move in a calculated way to attract attention. In reality, this only makes you more tired, and others, even if they don't say it, will sense that it is manipulation, not presence. Jung reminds us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. When you are yourself, without effort, without calculation, only then can you emit a frequency that reaches the hearts of others. So how can you be truly present with real grace? You can practice simply. Before each meeting or important moment, take 4 to 6 long breaths. Inhale slowly through your nose. Hold for a bit. Then exhale through your mouth, noticing how every part of your body gradually calms down. When speaking, look directly. Keep your gaze warm rather than scrutinizing. And before answering any question, pause for a beat. Let your words move with your breath. If you notice yourself losing your rhythm, stop and silently ask, what story is my body telling? When you return to your body the right to breathe, to move at its own pace, you also return to your mind the right to rest. And it is at that very moment that you send out the clearest silent message. I am someone you can trust, be with, and be yourself around. Embodied grace does not require explanation or display. It just needs you to return to each breath, each step, each gentle look. When you enter any space with that energy, you do not just enter a room, you light up your own inner space, and anyone perceptive enough will recognize you are a safe haven they long to return to. That is the most enduring, most subtle, and also the rarest form of allure. 8. Playfulness and wit. There are mornings when you step into an elevator with a few strangers. The air so tense you can hear your own breathing. Everyone seems anxious, eyes fixed on their phones, as if a single misplaced word might bring down the fragile world they're carrying. Then suddenly one woman glances at the glowing panel of buttons and jokes, half serious. If I press the wrong floor today? Maybe it's the universe telling me to skip my deadline and go for a walk. The whole elevator bursts into laughter, and you feel the heavy atmosphere gently stirred by a breeze. Just one witty comment, and you realize, some people know how to bring comfort without effort, turning an ordinary moment into something alive. Jung once said, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct." Though he was speaking of creativity, that spirit is just as true for human connection. Playfulness is not merely humor, it is a life instinct, an instinct to transform heaviness into lightness, an instinct to melt the persona we wear each day. When a woman knows how to joke at the right moment, to poke fun at herself in the right way, she not only lightens the mood but also shows others that she is genuine. Something rare in a world so tense and guarded. If you notice, the moments when you connect deeply with someone rarely happen in serious conversations, but in those unexpected lines that make you both laugh. Because laughter is when people set down their armor, if only for a moment. And it's exactly in those seconds, with defenses lowered, that intimacy is allowed to enter. A 2015 study by Dr. Jeffrey Hall, University of Kansas, showed that couples who feel they belong together do so not because they have similar personalities, but because they have the ability to create shared laughter. You don't need to be naturally funny, just a bit quick, witted, a little playful, and especially able to laugh at yourself. These together form a kind of emotional glue, impossible for logic to analyze but instantly recognizable to the heart. I once heard Mindy Kaling share about the first time she met someone who would later become very special to her. It wasn't his looks or achievements that caught her attention. It was a small comment he made as they were both carrying trays of food at a crowded event. "If I accidentally spill food on my shirt, just pretend it's a new fashion statement for me, okay?" Mindy said she couldn't help but laugh, and at that very moment, she knew she wanted to talk to him more. Not because the line was clever, but because it was genuine, self-deprecating, and without pretense. That is the trickster archetype, the playful side in each of us that melts away useless rigidity. Yet, as you and I both know, not all wit is healthy. Many people confuse playfulness with sarcasm, biting, caustic, using humor as a sugar-coated weapon to control or diminish others. That's not the positive trickster but the shadow, the dark side seeking to protect itself by pushing others away. Jung reminds us, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. When humor stems from unhealed wounds, it leaves others feeling stung instead of opened up. True playfulness isn't a contest to prove you're smarter. It's an invitation, not a push. It builds connection, not control. Try to remember a time you joked with genuine innocence, not calculation. Maybe you were sitting across from someone in a restaurant, glancing at an overly long menu and blurting out, "If I pick a dish based purely on intuition..." Don't judge me, my intuition can be a little wild. Did you notice how they laughed, and how the whole conversation afterward became softer, more authentic? That's the power of the trickster energy in Jung. Breaking the ice, opening the door, making heavy things sayable. Another study by Dr. Doris Bazzini, Appalachian State University, 2017, found that self-deprecating humor, especially from women, is perceived as trustworthy and warm because it reveals a high level of self-awareness, not perfectionism, and none of the tightness of ego. When you can laugh at yourself a little, you're saying, "I'm not perfect, and I accept that." That very acceptance is what makes people feel safe around you. However, there's something important to note. You don't have to be cheerful all the time. You're not required to be the life of the party in every gathering. Wit only holds its power when it's real, when it comes up naturally, at the right moment, in the right measure. It might be a gentle comment when conversation is getting too heavy, or a bit of self-mockery after a small mistake, or a playful grin when someone else tries too hard to be perfect. If you want to practice, try a very simple principle. Every time you meet someone, offer just one playful touch-point joke, nothing aggressive, nothing biting. Just a line that says, "I'm easy to be around." For example, if they apologize for being late because of traffic, you might gently say, "That's perfect. I needed a few extra minutes to negotiate with myself about what to drink today." That small joke tells the other person you're not annoyed, not tense, and most of all that you're human. Imagine yourself walking into a date. The two of you sit down, and both are a bit tense at first. And you, instead of trying to prove you're interesting, simply make one little playful comment, one just right smile. No grandstanding, no acting. And you'll see the entire mood shift. The other person relaxes their shoulders, their voice softens, their gaze becomes more real. The trickster, that mischievous yet kind side, has opened a door to intimacy that logic alone could never unlock. In the end, playfulness isn't about having a sense of humor. It's a declaration that life hasn't made you hardened, that you still have the energy to see things with gentle eyes, that you can still laugh even when life throws you hard challenges. And when a woman holds on to that spirit light yet deep, witty without hurting anyone, she possesses a very dangerous kind of allure. She makes others want to live more lightly, more honestly, and want to stay a little longer. 9. Receiving without performing. Imagine yourself standing at the checkout counter in a supermarket one afternoon, a few small items in your arms. The cashier, after scanning the last item, suddenly smiles and says, "I really like your scarf." Instead of simply saying thank you and moving on to check your wallet, you hesitate for a few seconds, unsure how to respond. It feels as if you have to justify yourself. "Oh, I got it on sale." Or, "Actually, this color is a bit old-fashioned." Sometimes you might even notice that as soon as you receive something, even just a compliment, you immediately feel indebted, that you have to give something back, or perform a little extra to deserve it. Have you ever felt that receiving can be just as exhausting as giving? Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This may sound abstract, but in reality, those awkward, uneasy reactions when we receive even a compliment, a small gift, or even care and attention, often reveal the fact that we grew up in a culture where giving is considered noble, while receiving must be reserved, accompanied by some kind of obligation. The more mature a woman becomes, the more she tends to think she should be the giver, the one who takes on, who worries for others. And so, receptive energy, the feminine receptive, is often stunted, equated with weakness, passivity, or even selfishness. Yet, it is exactly the balance between giving and receiving that creates lasting attraction. When you dare to receive calmly without feeling indebted, without rushing to repay, you not only allow the other person to give, but you also create a safe space for both of you. Research by Dr. Sarah Algo, University of North Carolina, 2012, shows that in every relationship, gratitude and the ability to receive proactively, not performatively, increase satisfaction, connection, and build trust more quickly than any other connecting strategy. When you accept compliments, gifts, or care without trying to perform in return, you activate the healthy giving side in the other person, especially in men, with their instinct to provide, to protect, to serve without being controlled or tested. You can look at the example of singer Adele in interviews. When complimented on her voice or stage presence, she always pauses, smiles, and simply says, "Thank you. I appreciate it." Nothing more, nothing less, no denial, no self-deprecation, and no stretching the conversation to feel more worthy of that compliment. And it is exactly that pause, that simplicity, that makes listeners feel a real connection, a kind of mature allure, not the manipulative game of making someone prove they are good enough. However, I know you and so many people are easily prone to one common mistake: using receiving as a test, a way to assess your partner through escalating demands. In that case, receiving is no longer about openness, but becomes a subtle form of control. The more you test, the more you hope to receive in order to affirm your worth, the more the other person feels that they can never be enough, never truly trusted. That's no longer connection, it's a transaction. Try to recall those times when someone offered to help you with a small task, carrying your bags, pulling out a chair for you at a meal, or simply listening to you talk about a hard day. In those moments, the hardest thing is sometimes just to receive. Just smile, look them in the eye, and say, "Thank you. I appreciate this." No explanation, no justification, no turning it into a performance. That's the moment you step into a mature, feminine, receptive state whole, not lacking, not excessive. Another study by Dr. Kristen Neff, University of Texas, 2003, on self-compassion shows that people who know how to receive without judgment or self-criticism have greater resilience, recover from setbacks more quickly, and maintain more stable social relationships. It is precisely this softness, the ability to pause, to let yourself accept something good without rushing to return it, that creates your own kind of gravity. You can practice this every day. The next time someone gives you a compliment, pause, look them in the eye, smile just enough, and simply say, "Thank you." Don't prolong it. Don't rush to change the subject, and don't turn it into an obligation to return the compliment. Let the act of giving and receiving flow into a natural silence. The next time someone offers you help, don't wave them off. Don't say, "That's not necessary." Try allowing yourself to receive. When you do this, you are sending the world, and especially the men beside you, a very different message. I believe in balance. I believe in my own value. And that is the foundation of a healthy relationship. Two people who get to be themselves, no one performing, no one straining to meet the other's expectations. It may feel awkward at first, even uncomfortable, but the more you practice, the more you'll realize. Receiving without performing is the key to a deep and lasting kind of allure, the kind that doesn't come from pleasing someone else, but from your own calm, abundant, unashamed energy. You light up the inner room with a simple thank you. You open the door to connection with a genuine smile, and you step into life with a new confidence. Giving and receiving both are worthy. 10. Differentiation. From parent complexes. Try to recall a very ordinary moment. You're sitting at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea before you, watching as a message pops up on your phone from someone you're dating or in love with. That message might be a complaint about work, a rundown of their exhaustion, or simply a request for you to fix some minor problem in their day. You notice two conflicting emotions rising inside. One part of you wants to be there to help, to soothe, to take the burden. But the other part feels yourself being pulled into the role of mother or father, the one who always has to care, fix, and take responsibility for someone else's feelings. Why do you get caught in this cycle? And why does it leave you so drained? Carl Jung once emphasized, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." Within each of us are psychological inheritances from our parents, not just memories or personality traits, but models of loving, where we learn to either shoulder burdens, seek salvation, or unconsciously replay old roles in our adult relationships. That's when you're not truly loving someone, but trying to heal the wounded child inside them or inside yourself. You play the mother for a man who has not matured emotionally, or you seek a man to play the father, hoping to be sheltered, rescued, or directed. This is the psychological triangulation that Jung calls the parent complex, an invisible but persistent loop. A 2014 study by Dr. Terry Apter, Cambridge, on role entanglements in adult relationships showed that when women or men are trapped in the parent, child, or savior, weakling dynamic, relationships become unbalanced. One person becomes depleted from caretaking, while the other never grows because they are always rescued. This is a form of exhausting attraction, where you think you are loving deeply, but in truth you're only trying to save your own wounded self. Let's look at the story of the writer Glennon Doyle, a woman who once described her first marriage as a room full of responsibility where no one could breathe. Only when she found the courage to step out, to let go of the role of the one who fixes everything, did she learn to set boundaries and say directly to her current partner, "I care, but this is your responsibility." At that moment, Glennon said, she felt afraid, relieved, and free for the very first time. The biggest mistake many people make is turning a relationship into an endless therapy room, with one person playing the doctor and the other remaining the patient. You think you do this out of love? But in reality, it is to avoid facing feelings of helplessness, emptiness, or fear within yourself. The more you try to heal, the less your partner matures, and the more you lose yourself. Jung makes it clear, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When you do not realize you are being pulled into a parent complex, you will keep repeating the same pattern and call it destiny. If you find yourself doing, thinking, or worrying on someone else's behalf, try pausing, taking a deep breath, and stating this boundary: I care, but this is your responsibility. That statement is not cruel, nor does it reject love. It is a mark of maturity. It is an invitation for the other person to grow up, and a chance for you to free yourself from a role that has become too heavy. Another prime example comes from the film Good Will Hunting. The character Skylar loves Will, but when she realizes Will only seeks in her a mother to heal him, not an equal partner, she chooses to step away, even though it hurts. She chooses to leave, rather than continue to play the role of savior, because she understands. Love cannot be an endless treatment. When you truly break free from the parent complex, you will see your relationships gradually transform. You love someone for who they are, not for the role they provide. You allow your partner to take responsibility for their emotions, choices, and life, instead of taking it all upon yourself. And that is when mature attraction appears. Both people stand on their own feet, ready to walk together, with no one compensating for the other's pain. You can start today by checking, is there something you are doing for someone that they should be handling themselves? Are you confusing control with care? Worry with love? And the next time you are faced with a choice, remind yourself, I care, but this is your responsibility. That is not just a boundary. It is the first step to lighting up your inner room, stepping out of the triangle of pain, and beginning the journey toward truly mature love. 11. Rituals and aesthetics. Have you ever sat down in a coffee shop, surrounded by the bustle of the city, and suddenly found yourself stilled by the sound of gentle music, the golden light pouring onto your table, and the subtle scent of cinnamon in the air that seems to soothe your soul? Those tiny details may seem insignificant, yet they wrap you in a sense of being held, of being safe. You might notice, in the presence of certain people, that the space around you transforms. A tidy kitchen, candles on the dining table, a tablecloth in just the right shade, a touch of orange essential oil, each little element enough to let you know that someone here always keeps a special place for vibrancy and connection. And when you are the one creating these small rituals, you are weaving a very real field of energy that makes everyone want to linger just a little longer. Carl Jung once said, "Symbols are the language of the soul." We do not live on words alone, but are also guided and healed through symbols, through sensory experience. Rituals, personal ceremonies, and aesthetics are the ways each person creates for themselves and those they love, a space with order, with marks of meaning. It is no coincidence that enduring relationships have their little rules: a set piece of music every Sunday morning, a work desk always adorned with fresh flowers, a Friday night always reserved for a special dish. These are not mere preferences, but the way you tell the world, everything here is cared for. When you invite someone into such a space, you are welcoming them into a safe, warm region of the unconscious. A 2019 study by Dr. Michael Norton, Harvard Business School, on the impact of rituals in relationships showed that couples and families who maintain small rituals, like drinking tea together every evening, clearing the table together, or even just a nightly good night wish, experience significantly higher satisfaction, attachment, and emotional resilience than those who have no rituals at all. This comes not from material value or grand gestures, but from the density of meaning sewn into each repeated act. Recall the image of artist Leonard Cohen in his small apartment, every morning spending a few minutes lighting an incense stick, setting a cup of tea on the table, turning on background music, and only then beginning to write. He once said that these simple rituals made him feel as if a hand was supporting him. holding him steady amid the chaos of life. And when you invite someone into such a space, you offer them a sense of being held, being contained, and being able to be themselves. But you and I both understand, rituals and aesthetics only possess their power when they come from an authentic inner life. Sometimes we're tempted to construct immaculate spaces just to hide the emptiness inside, turning the room, the party, or the date into a magnificent but cold stage. You decorate, arrange, create ambiance, only to cover up loneliness or to impress someone. That kind of staging, no matter how beautiful, does not create an energetic field. On the contrary, it makes others feel as if they are attending a performance unreal, distant. Jung reminds us, the soul demands your attention. When you are truly present, caring for every small corner with quiet attention and tenderness, you are sending a silent message to everyone around you. Here, you are free to be yourself. The space becomes a container that holds Eros, the energy of life and connection. And in those moments, every meeting, every meal, every moment of intimacy becomes a ritual where people can settle, lower their defenses, feel more, trust more. Do you want to practice this? Try the 3-point touch rule for every space you share. The lighting should be warm enough, private enough, just right for 2 people to sit together without distractions. Sound comes from a subtle background track, just enough to fill the silence, but not enough to drown out genuine voices. Scent is lifted by a gentle note tea, coffee, or a touch of natural essential oil, just enough for your body and your guest to sense. Here is different from out there. Perfection isn't necessary. The most important thing is that you are truly present, attending to every detail with love, not pressure. You will realize, these small rituals teach both you and those you love to listen to each other, to appreciate the present moment, to pause in the storm of life. And when you invite someone into that space not needing many words, not needing promises, you have created an inner sanctuary, a silent symbol of presence, of affection, of trust. This is a very dangerous kind of allure. It sinks deep into memory, lingers in the senses, and always calls people back. 12. Nano-attachment to outcome. Have you ever sat in your car, surrounded by a crowded parking lot, staring at the steering wheel and feeling your heart clench just because of an unanswered text? It's not that you're desperate, but you fear you've done something wrong, worry that this person has lost interest, dread that the outcome is slipping from your control. Just one silent message is enough to send your whole day into a suspended state. Uncertain, untethered, unable to guess what will happen next. In that moment, you suddenly feel yourself shrinking as if your entire worth is hanging on someone else's reaction. I know that feeling. In those moments of uncertainty, people often cling tightly to outcomes, longing to be affirmed, to be chosen, to be kept. But the paradox is here. The more you grasp, the more you lose yourself. The more you loosen your grip, the more you become fully present. Jung once said, "The greatest tragedy is to live the life of someone else." When your mind spins around the question of whether they will choose you, you are handing your soul to a wind blowing from somewhere else. But when you put individuation, the journey of becoming your true self first, you reclaim your right to exist from any approval outside of yourself. Look at the story of actress Viola Davis in her memoir, Finding Me. She shared that in an old relationship, she nearly lost herself to the fear of abandonment. Every decision revolved around the question, will he be satisfied? Until the day she realized that clinging to outcomes had separated her from her inner voice. When she stepped away from that relationship, not blaming, not burning bridges, just leaving with kindness, something strange happened. She became more attractive, freer, and eventually found a true companion. Not because she tried to act indifferent, but because she let go of the fear inside herself. A 2020 study by Dr. Rachel Heller on emotional non-attachment showed something interesting. Those who know how to express their needs, listen to feedback, and accept the outcome, whether positive or negative, generate a sense of trust and attraction much stronger than those who always try to control every situation. The reason is simple. They don't use insecurity to manipulate others, and the unconscious of the other person picks up on that. I remember a woman once shared that she walked out of her 4th date with a man, not sure if he actually liked her. When he asked, "Shall we meet next week?" she didn't try to guess his intentions but gently replied, I'm busy next week, but I'd like to see you again. Suggest a time and I'll see if I can make it. She made a proposal, observed his response, and accepted whatever answer might come. No acting, no strategic retreat, no attempt to be unpredictable. What made that man begin to notice her more deeply wasn't any coldness, but her steadiness. He felt as if he was talking to someone who didn't need him to define herself, and that very quality awakened in him responsibility, respect, and a true longing for connection. That is why non-attachment is so dangerous. People are used to using outcomes to gain power, but when you are not bound to any particular result, you become a mirror that reflects their true nature. Those who are afraid will run away. Those capable of real love will draw closer. Jung once emphasized, what you resist not only persists, but grows. When you fight against the possibility of rejection, the fear grows. When you accept all possibilities, you reclaim your power. So how to practice this? I suggest a very simple but extremely powerful principle. The graceful exit script. It only has 3 steps. Gratitude. Name the difference. Wish well. For example, thank you for what we shared. I think our expectations are a bit different. I hope you find what suits you best. Maturity lies in your ability to leave without having to prove who was right or wrong. You don't slam the door, you simply close it gently. The most important thing to remember: non-attachment is not pretending to be indifferent. It is not a cold persona. It is the full presence of your heart, but a heart that does not lose itself over any answer. And when you live from that place, you will see the miracle. The less you need to hold on, the more others want to keep you close. Not because you are playing a game, but because you are free. And freedom is always the deepest kind of allure. 13. Desire and consent clarity. There are very small moments in daily life, so small you might not realize they're draining you. Like one afternoon at the supermarket, you stand in a crowded aisle holding 2 different sauces and still can't decide which one you actually want. Not because it's important, but because you're so exhausted you can't tell what I like from what others want me to choose. And it's in these seemingly ordinary moments that you catch the truth. You've become so used to living in ambiguity that you've lost the language of true desire. You've said, anything's fine, I'm okay, whatever makes you happy. Not because you're easygoing, but because you're afraid that speaking clearly about what you want will make you seem difficult, selfish, or too demanding. Yet, as Carl Jung wrote, there is no consciousness without discrimination of opposites. If you do not dare to distinguish between what you like and what you won't accept, you cannot awaken your true identity. Desire and boundaries are the opposing pair that create psychological maturity. When you're vague, Eros within you is suffocated, while shadow rises up, leading the way with fear instead of clarity. I once met a woman named Marlene, who told me she always has trouble with men because they often misunderstand her. But as we talked, I realized the problem wasn't that men misunderstood her, but that she never spoke clearly. In a previous relationship, she wanted to move slowly, but was afraid of disappointing him, so instead of saying, I want to keep this pace slow, she stayed silent, tried to act easygoing, and quietly resented that he couldn't guess her needs. That's not clarity. It's a way of turning silence into a form of punishment. And the most painful thing was, she didn't realize she was suffocating herself. A 2019 study by Dr. Terry Conley noted that relationships with high levels of trust always began with 2 things: direct language and consistent boundaries in sensitive moments. When someone can say, I'm comfortable with this, or I want to stop now, the other person's nervous system instantly shifts into safety mode. Conversely, any ambiguous action or hidden meaning triggers both parties' subconscious to activate their defenses. Humans aren't afraid of the truth. They're afraid of nameless shadows. Look at the story of singer Alicia Keys in a 2016 interview. She shared that after years of doing everything to please others, she realized she'd never asked herself, what do I really want? When she began to voice what made her comfortable, what she couldn't accept, and what she valued in a relationship, both her career and personal life changed. no longer centered around how others felt, but around conscious consent. That clarity made her attractive in a completely new way, mature, authentic, never ambiguous. So why is clarity about desire and consent dangerous to men? Not because it threatens them, but because it forces them into their own maturity. When you say, "I like this," you empower yourself. When you say, "I'm not comfortable with that," you maintain your integrity. And when you speak directly, no beating around the bush, no defensiveness, no sending mixed signals, you avoid all distortions from the shadow, like control, judgment, or power games. The real allure lies precisely here. You don't delegate the responsibility of interpretation to someone else. You speak your own language. And men subconsciously feel that as a rare kind of attraction, as if they're standing before someone who knows who she is and what she wants. I suggest you practice something very simple. In every important interaction, use these two phrases. Keep them brief, direct, and in the present tense. I like, I'm not comfortable with. Once you've said it, stop. No justifying, no explaining, no trying to soften the blow to keep others comfortable. Just leave the space open for the other to respond honestly. You'll be surprised how much lighter life feels when you don't use silence to punish, don't use ambiguity to test, and don't use guessing games to hurt yourself. Clarity isn't coldness, it's light. And when you shine that light from within, you don't have to try to be alluring. Your magnetism naturally warms, naturally spreads, just like a room that brightens after years of living in darkness. 14. What it is not. Imagine one morning as you wake up, your phone is flooded with messages, words of love, promises so sweet, you begin to doubt your own feelings. Someone new in your life has sent you hundreds of messages a day, gifts, reminders about every little thing, and then suddenly disappears. Your emotions are swept up high, then dropped abruptly. You feel confused, unsteady, a bit exhilarated, but even more exhausted. Maybe you've gone through those games of testing loyalty, triggering jealousy, emotional starvation, or cycles of breaking up and reconciling just to keep someone obsessed. Carl Jung warned very clearly, where love reigns, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, there love is lacking. When you use love to manipulate, control, or make someone guess, you are no longer in a state of healthy Eros. You are swimming in your own shadows. Love bombing, pushing boundaries through fight, makeup, tactics, deliberately inciting jealousy, or making someone addicted to emotional roller coasters. These are not Jungian seduction, they are trauma bonding. Bonding through wounds, building invisible ropes that tie both people into a state of perpetual insecurity. A 2018 study by Dr. Patrick Carnes on trauma bonds showed that relationships frequently using extreme emotional tactics, bursts of affection, sudden coldness, disappearing and returning, actually activate the deepest wounds in the brain. The other person does not love you. They are addicted to the tension, the uncertainty, the anticipation, and the fear of losing you. This feeds the shadow, while Eros becomes increasingly suffocated, and trust erodes day by day. I once heard a guest on Brené Brown's show share about a relationship she thought was deeply loving, only to realize later it was a cycle of addicted love, addicted chaos. Every time her message went unanswered, her anxiety peaked, and every unexpected sweet gesture sent her into euphoria. Those highs didn't come from true connection, but from being starved and then fed again, leaving her nervous system constantly on alert. She said, "Only much later did I realize, love isn't like that. Love is peaceful. Love makes you trust yourself more, not fear whenever you aren't being validated by someone else." If you find yourself or someone else using tactics of emotional manipulation, whether love bombing, triggering jealousy, starving emotions, or testing with endless breakups and reconciliations, ask yourself, is this seduction coming from my shadow? Am I building an addiction to emotion to keep someone, or do I truly want connection? Jung emphasized, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Be brave enough to face those shadows, to cut through any illusions of power and revive healthy Eros within yourself. Jungian seduction is never about control, never about emotional manipulation, and never about power games laced with wounds. It is the light that shines from knowing exactly who you are, what you desire, and where you set your boundaries. When you refuse to feed the shadow with cycles of insecurity, you truly step out of darkness and into love as it is, peaceful, luminous, and full of trust. My friend, we have unraveled together the secret of effortless allure. Remember, the dangerous magnetism described by Jung lies not in tricks or psychological games, but in the density of your presence. It is the moment when a woman returns to being one with herself. And when you are one, men are not only attracted, they are invited to grow. Here is the core message I want you to carry with you. You do not need to make anyone fall in love with you. You are the light of your own soul. This power is not indifference. It is true confidence. Confidence is not about being without fear. It is about not letting fear lead the way. When you are self-possessed, have boundaries, embrace the shadow, and speak the truth, you do not flirt with anyone. You become the magnetic field that draws the right things to you. You have consciously chosen this path of inner maturity, and that is the most beautiful thing. You are no longer a choice because you have chosen to be yourself. To begin this deep individuation journey, I want to leave you with a small 7-day challenge. Choose one of these actions to practice. 1. Spend 10 minutes in silence every morning, or 2. Write down one specific boundary you need to set today. Keep this conversation going with yourself, and if this video resonates with you, share it to help another woman find the light within herself. Are you ready to enter the phase of becoming the magnetic field? If you want to continue exploring these profound psychological secrets with me, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications today.